Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of eCoffee with Experts. I'm your host, Matt Fraser. And on today's show, I have with me very special guest, Chuck Isaac Aikens. Now, Chuck is the founder and an advisor to Volume 9, a digital marketing agency headquartered in Denver, Colorado. V9 helps brands with SEO, social media, and content marketing. And during the last 15 plus years with Volume 9, he has been assisting brands to connect with their audience through creative content marketing strategies. Chuck recently sold Volume 9 at the end of July. His next chapter involves working directly with brands, either as a digital marketing executive or as a fractional CMO. He works with brand needs to develop its SOPs, establish its systems, and then find the talent to execute based on the overall marketing strategy. He is a search marketing veteran with over 20 years of experience helping companies get found in search. Early on in his career, he discovered that helping businesses figure out the internet was the way he could bring value to the world. When not on his laptop, Chuck likes to go get outdoors for a run, a hike, or even just a walk. He also does a bit of skiing, is a pretend scratch golfer, and father of two. When not doing any of these things, you might find him cheering on his favorite team or out enjoying the wonderful state of Colorado. Chuck, thank you so much. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. So we were talking about the episode topic today of killer strategies to amplify your brand's voice and connect with your audience. You in the bio I just described, you've had an interesting journey thus far. I'm just curious who you were as a high school student. For instance, were you always interested in marketing, or did it evolve in your career?
You know, what's funny about that, Matt, is in high school, in growing up, even in college, never actually took a marketing class.
Oh, wow.
I was really good at math, science, even had scholarships, that I had going into college, and was even spent a year in ROTC before I found out that they wanted me to go on to a nuclear submarine, after college. So, I found my way to marketing almost by happenstance. But in high school, back to your question, I was I was definitely what I think a little bit of an odd character in high school because at one moment I was one of the few kids that was taking calculus. But on the other hand, I would skip first period because I realized I could get to Daytona Beach before the first period bell rang, and then the teachers would be looking for me. So a little bit of a rebel, a little bit of a little bit of a nerd. Played some sports and also worked full time. I almost had I shouldn't say full time, but I worked a lot as a high schooler and worked full time through college. So always a hustler. But with all those different topics I brought up, you could probably say that I was a little lost and a little bit of a wanderer before I found the internet.
Oh, okay. Did you always want to be an entrepreneur?
I didn't know it at the time, but I did. My first job ever, I worked for an entrepreneur, a gentleman, first manager, first exposure to business. He had a clothing store in a old downtown area. And he, fun story, I was 16 years old. He took me to a buyer's expo where you buy things for the clothing store. And I got brought into this booth, and I just loved their product. It was the first time that Oakley sunglasses had ever went to a trade show selling their product. They had their frog skins there, and I told him, I'm a 16-year-old. I said, you got to buy these things. You got to put them in your store. And he spent a couple $1,000s, brought the Oakley frog skins into his store, and a whole new audience showed up to what was kind of a old man store, if you will. So all of a sudden, high schoolers and the 20 and 30-year-olds were coming to the store because he was the only one in town that had the Oakley frog skins. So, that was my first taste of entrepreneurship and how, doing something a little more cavalier and entrepreneur would, can take you down a path you never imagined. And, I also started the DJ business in college. And spun tunes at weddings and bar mitzvahs and quinceañeras to pay my way through college. So always been an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people I talk to who are agents, they're just, they either always wanted it, they didn't know it, but a lot of entrepreneurs have paper routes. I had a paper route when I was a kid. I was always hustling, doing something. I had my first job when I was 14 and sometimes skip school to work, even as young as grade 9. Now, if that happened today, the business would be fine big time where I live. But anyway, so that being said, what then motivated you to start your own? You said that, you kind of happened chance into marketing. What motivated you to start your digital marketing agency, Volume 9?
Yeah. So prior to the agency, I had two experiences. One, I built a website. I had a sales job coming out of college where I was selling mortgages, doing refis, doing everything. So I realized that people needed to be educated about the mortgage process. I built a website called Mortgage 101 taught people all about the mortgage process. Long story short, I sold it after 2 or 3 years because the first time that I ever came across Google, I typed in the word mortgage and it was ranked number 1. And that had some interest to folks. So, somebody purchased it and bought it. And the company that bought it was a public company. I went to work for them, eventually working my way up to be a COO. In charge, product development, sales, marketing, all kinds of different things. But I was so deep in the mortgage industry that quite honestly, I got a little bored. I learned so much about digital marketing, about how to run a business that I wanted to get back into my community because we worked with nationwide banks. I wanted to get back into my community to really help small businesses with digital marketing. There was such a need. Yeah. So the genesis of an agency, I didn't even call it that at the time, was just a desire to honestly help friends, families, people that I knew here in Denver, Colorado with marketing, building websites. There wasn't such a thing as blogging or social media back there. That's what started the company 15 years ago. And, classic founder story. I got busy with clients. Then I hired people to help me service those clients. I hired people to, and train them to do the production work. And before I knew it, I had 10, 15 employees and had started an agency. But it was always rooted in two things. One, helping the brand. And then two, teaching people how to do digital marketing and, letting them advance in their careers and being part of their journey. And an agency was a perfect, and still is a perfect place to do that. You got talented experts that want to help and do good work. And you have brands that are looking for an edge when they go on the internet and try to compete. So that was the genesis of the agency. At one point got it up to about 40 or 50 people. And, then decided with the agency that we wanted to focus on SEO. We did that for 4 or 5 years, then broadened into social and content, over the last 4 or 5 years that I was involved with it.
What were some of the challenges of growing to 40 people, Chuck, if I might ask?
Yeah, honestly, just the fact that there's 40 people is challenging. Having and managing and interacting with so many folks, and starting to build, what I'd almost consider mini agencies or mini business lines inside of the agency. When agencies get to that size, and as we did, you suddenly have a web team and you have a social media team. You have SEO, you have client services. And one of the challenges that I felt at that stage, and I'm sure every agency owner runs into, is then you have mouths to feed. And when you have the mouths to feed, it's not so much that as an owner, I was worried about making payroll. We weren't, that wasn't our problem. It was that suddenly our solutions were built in a way that fed the team's business. And so sometimes it made it challenging to say, okay, what does this company really need? Because what I have are these 4 service lines and I need to sell that to them. But what if they need something else besides those 4 service lines? Well, then you had to have agency partners and you had to fill in around that. But first and foremost, you had to sell your services. So what I always asked myself, first and foremost, before we got into pitch mode is what does this brand really need? And are we the best agency for that? And that's really hard to do when you need to, fill production team.
When you have to
do that. So that was a challenge of just almost staying honest to the, to the brand, to what we represented, what the value of Volume 9 was, and personally myself, and always doing the right thing by a brand. Just making sure that I kept that in check with, keeping the web team busy and getting more social media contracts and, finding, real challenging things for the SEO team to solve. So you always kind of had that conflict between what brands needed and what we wanted as
what you had to offer. Did you therefore turn away some business before doing the pitch because you realized it wasn't the right fit and the brand didn't need what you were offering?
Oh, absolutely.
Did you have to make those tough decisions?
That's hard to do. It's really hard to do.
That would be so hard to do.
We all want to do it. When you see a potential opportunity to maybe sell a service to a brand, you want to sell it to them, even if they should have something else first. And there was a lot of business that got turned away. One story that I really love is, I turned away a startup business because they just weren't ready for what we were going to do for them. But we had great conversations. It was a really, it was a business I really loved. I would have really liked to have had them as a client. And sure enough, about 2 years later, they came back and engaged with us because they had done the foundational work and had grown their operations to the point where our services made sense for them. So a lot of times, that rarely happened, but it happened on occasion. But it always was important to be honest and authentic with folks about whether or not the agency was the right fit for them, and it was the right time, and that it was going to be a really good engagement. But because of that, there were clients that we kept for years and years and years. And there were clients that, left after 3 or 4 months because they got what they needed and moved on. And I really, relished and was grateful for those folks who came on board at the right time. And then we had a really good long-term relationship with them.
Yeah.
I still keep relations with the first client we ever signed up as an agency. There's still someone I work with later. And that's a testament to doing it right, but also, always, looking out for their interest as well.
So how did you decide who was the right agency? As an agency, how did you decide who was the right business to take on and who was the ones to turn away?
It sounds like a simple answer, but the first thing you have to do is something that I've heard people call active listening.
Okay.
When you ask questions and I call it discovery. When you're doing the discovery in the sales process, or even if you're doing it when you start the project or start the relationship, but to listen so actively that you're almost reading into the answer behind the answer or the question behind the question. When you dig that deep, not just the what, the why is important, the how's important, but to really, have the empathy of, if I were in this client's shoes, if I were in this brand's shoes, if I were in Matt's shoes, what would I do? And if what Volume 9 did or what I do, even today, is a good fit for that, we're going to figure this out. We'll find the right retainer. We'll find the right way to compensate. We'll put together a 3-month, a 3-year plan, all of that.
Okay.
If we can truly get to what is it that you need, and how am I, or how are we going to solve for this? It shows itself. And if when there's a good fit there, and that you're going to be able to do things together, and when it's maybe, and it's a no, and even maybe is okay, because sometimes maybe is the best you can find when you go looking for someone to help you, or when we're looking for the right fit, and that can work its way into a great situation later. But when it's a no, you just gotta say, all right, it's a great conversation. It's just not the right time, right fit, right strategy for you at the moment. And but it really is. I would almost say, like, it in your gut. It's an intuition type thing that you have to trust.
Or besides budget being an issue, were there any other red flags that would, over the years, you learned to identify that caused you to know right away whether a business would be a right fit for the agency or not?
Yeah, I would say the next thing that I would probably look at is I'm not sure what the global word to call it is, but when someone comes in and does a self-diagnosis, um, or they have zero idea, like they just start the keys and say, you just do whatever you want. So it's either lack of engagement in the conversation,
Okay.
meaning you're the expert,
Yeah.
you just do whatever, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the other extreme where, someone comes in and they say, hey, I've already determined that, hey, I did my own SEO audit. I did my own, content strategy.
Yeah.
I need you to do what I tell you. Either one of those situations can be a red flag. I know that's an extreme.
No, but fair enough.
What I always have looked to do is to say, how are we going to build together the best possible between your team and your resources, your employees, your contractors, your friends and family, my team, me, my my resources, my time. How are we going to mash this together to create a team that just can accomplish great things? So it's that together, the 1+1 is 3 kind of concept that I'm always looking for. So whenever someone hands you the keys and they just want you to do everything, or they think that they're going to dictate that, that's not inside of that spirit of we're going to do this together. That's how we really do great things.
Yeah.
I can lead the orchestration of this. I can provide leadership and direction. And so I'm not trying to pass that buck, but everyone's involved. Yeah. That's what success looks like to me. And so a red flag would be things that get in the way of everybody working together towards that, whatever that strategy is.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I worked for someone like that who wouldn't provide me with a budget for content marketing or SEO, but then would go and spend $5,000 on the newspaper and tell me and ask me what I thought. Exactly. And it's like, you quickly realize that, someone like that who's micromanaging or doesn't know what they're doing, but thinks they know what they're doing is not the right fit to work with. So, So thank you for sharing that. Cause those are two really good things. If they're trying to tell you how to do it because they think they know it all, or if they don't know any idea what they're doing and just want you to do it all, those are two not very good things. I've asked that question before, and the answer you gave was probably the most insightful answer I've heard yet to that question. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Oh, see, I think I was just babbling. So great.
No, not at all. No. I've asked, not at all. In your agency, I guess you would focus on helping clients. And one of the hardest things I found about running my agency and business was trying to figure out, number one, turning my services into products in order to scale, but figuring out what I could offer the business at hand and what they needed, and making sure that it was the right fit. But I know that one of the things you did was help them to create a brand voice and helping them to do that. Can you share? I mean, our audience is pretty sophisticated, but just so that we're on the same page, the definition of a brand voice.
Yeah, when you say brand voice, boy, a lot of things pop into my mind. But if we think of a brand as a separate entity, a brand has a personality, and that a lot of times a brand will take on the personality of a entrepreneur, of a founder, of the creator, and there's often a creator story that builds the brand. But as the brand evolves, as it has products and services, as it brings on employees, as it has what we would call influencers and partners, and then has customers, and all of this is happening. Most brands form a personality, whether it's intentional or not. Yeah. So when I think about brand voice, I start to think about what is it that the brand represents? What is its true self? What is it authentically? And then also, how would you grow that? Just like a person grows over their life, how would that voice evolve into, something that the brand stands for, but also allows someone out there in the world to connect with the brand because it is similar, or it has a connection, or it wants to belong or be affiliated with that brand. So it's almost like if you go to a party, or if you go to an event, you never said anything, why would people find you interesting or want to engage with you? They wouldn't. So a brand needs to communicate authentically through its voice, just so people can decide if they like it or not. Because then you're gonna attract people who have similar values and attributes and want to be part of a community if your brand voice is, reflective and authentic to your values. And if you never spend time with what are my values, what is my voice, what is it that I want to project for the world and to the world, how would a consumer or a partner ever know that they'd want to do business with you?
Yeah.
Just like, how would someone know if they wanted to date you?
Yeah. So what was your process for helping businesses do that? For instance, Apple is one of the most valuable brands in the world, if not the most valuable brand in the world, although they all weren't always that way. Steve Jobs, before he died, really turned them around. The invention of the iPhone has literally changed the entire, mobile phones were not what they were until he came up with the iPhone. And kudos to him for that. It was bloody brilliant. But how does a business go from not knowing what their brand voice is to becoming knowing what Apple or Nike is? Or in other words, I'll put this another way. How does it, and if you can speak to any of these things that I'm saying, or if you want to speak to things that I inspire you to say, that's fine. Hopefully I do. But for instance, how can someone go from just another plumber.com to a plumber that everybody wants to call?
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate that you went from Apple and Nike down to a plumber, because while you have Nike's inspiration and the Apple fanboy, and you have Coke and Happy, and you have Volvo and safety, so often when someone gets up to speak or share their information, they use these brands that are so evolved and so complicated that I don't know if it translates to a plumber. I don't know if it translates to a real estate agent. So I have a friend that's a real estate agent, and he's he always asks me about marketing, about branding, about everything he can do.
Yeah.
And every time I talk to him about his brand and his voice and how he communicates with his customers, I try to say, what is it that you represent? Who are you? What are you trying to do? Going deep into it, almost like a therapist or the psychology of the brand, digging into it and saying, who are you? What are you? Who do you want to be? Is the very beginning. It's hard work.
It is,
but
isn't it?
You have to do this self-discovery to say, what are my values? What is my voice? It is the first step. And when you mention Steve Jobs and Apple, I don't have the exact story down, but we all know Steve Jobs turned it around because I'm making this up and paraphrasing, but Apple had lost its way. It had lost its brand voice. And his way may not have been the best way. Who knows? But it sure was a damn good way. And so when he came back, he got that brand back on track because, he took it towards a very clear direction that was based on his thoughts and his personality and his way of doing things. And it created a subculture that, people could really relate with, without getting into the actual tactics and techniques. So, what you inspired me to kind of talk about there is yes, you can look at these big brands, just like if you were a designer, you can look at the incredibly, sophisticated yet simple design that Apple does. But when you bring it down to a small brand, a small business, the brand voice usually comes from the creator or founder or someone who is very representative, in building that. It usually starts there. So for me, because I tend to work with small to medium-sized companies, let's say in a B2B space between 2 and 10 million, in consumer products, probably 25 million and below. You're usually at the space where brand voice has not been developed, and you really need to dig for it because it's starting to get lost.
Okay.
As they become a grown-up business, they lose the brand voice of who they really are. So it's an internal soul-seeking, who do I want to be? What do I want to represent? And you don't have to get super. I mean, you can get directional and decide, or am I more funny? Or am I more serious? Am I more scientific? Am I more creative? Like you can do some brand attributions just to kind of get started on your voice. But it really comes down to authenticity, and then having the courage, if you will, to go out and communicate that way, to communicate in your own voice, and then be consistent in everything that you do towards that voice that you've decided is representative of your brand.
So can we in regards to that development of that, is it start with like a word map around emotions in order to create what the brand is about, and the key founders being involved in that? For instance, obviously one of the first words that comes to mind for me when I say Apple is innovation, although some people would argue that isn't the case for Apple anymore, but I won't go there, even though I said it. But, Steve Jobs was inventing the iPhone 3 years before it was even possible for it to operate on the network. Like he developed it 3 years before the network was even able to handle the iPhone. That's how far ahead he saw. So he was an innovative person, and Apple was innovative in various different ways. The iPhone has literally changed mobile connectivity and the way we do our lives, which inspired Android and whatever. But is it start with like the personality of the person and the founders, or is it like when you take, if I wanted to get you to, if I wanted to hire you to help me develop the brand voice of a company, and I can again come back to Acme Plumbing if you want, or we can pick something else. Well, what would your process be of your starting point of, okay, this is the first thing we're going to do to create your brand voice, and this is the first exercise we're going to do?
You mentioned a really good exercise, which is a word map.
Okay.
The way I translate that tactic and that technique is actually, I put a list of words in front of 1, 2, 3, 4, whoever the stakeholders are, and I just have them circle words that.
That's neat.
That they that resonate with them, and a lot of them are emotional words. Now there's you got to do this twice, because the first time I do it, I don't give them any instruction, but I know it's aspirational. It's what they think they should say. And once I have those documented, I go back and I say, no, I want you to answer this true and authentic to who you really are and what you are going to actually say and do on a consistent basis. And I kind of challenge some of the words to get, like you just did with Apple. Okay, Steve Jobs wanted to be innovative. Was he? So a lot of times, and I'll get on a little bit of a tangent and come back. And when a lot of times, a lot of times people will have priorities, but how do they live their life? On an hour by hour basis. Maybe they do want to spend more time with their kids. That's aspirational. Do they actually do it? Okay. So the same way, you aspirationally might say you want to be innovative. I'm going to look for proof of innovation, because that means you're already doing it. So I need to kind of do an assessment between your aspirational brand voice and the current brand voice of what's actually happening, whether you're communicating it or not. So once I have those two things, kind of figured out, and if I can't get them to do the second one, I might do it myself. And again, I'm not judging, simply assessing. Much like you would maybe if you were looking at the SEO of a website. Where do you want to be? Yeah. Great. Where are you now? I just need to know so that I can bridge the gap. So where do you want the brand voice to be? From 1, 2, 3, 4 people, where are we now? And there's a set of open-ended questions. I have some standard ones that I do, but then also, depending on what I'm seeing, I might ask some additional questions. Because if I'm hired or if someone's helping you with your brand voice, the curation of these words, the emotions, the labels that you put on them that eventually become the pillars and attributes that you document for other people to read so that they can help you stay on brand and inside of your brand voice, right? We have to explore each one of these. But if you were to say, Chuck, I think with Matt's question and now with your answer, is there a process there? Yes. a set of words or a word map, both aspirational, and then assess where you are today.
Yeah.
And then against that, you need open-ended questions and discussion around these words to start to build your messaging, to start to understand where you would improve, to start actually doing things in as simple as, what does my ad copy say? What does my website say? How do I communicate in a company meeting? What's my lead into a webinar? Like, in all kinds of situations, you get the opportunity to go one way or another, funny or serious, innovative or traditional, right? You start to just having these black and white that you can figure out where you fall on the spectrum. Even if you haven't fully developed out your brand voice, you're on your journey towards finding it, towards developing it. Because what we would do in the beginning, in the first 30 days, is very, very foundational. The guys that we mentioned, from Apple to Nike, I mentioned Volvo. This didn't happen one day. I have no idea how long Volvo's been around, but I don't think they developed this yesterday. It happened over time. So with that plumber, with that real estate agent, with that B2B software company, with someone selling wigs or eyelashes on Shopify, wherever it might be, we can put the foundation in place. And you're going to develop this over time because there's so many inputs. How your customer service reps talk to your clients. What do your influencers say or do? What do your customers say or do? Like, you're going to, just like you would, kind of, your personality would evolve over years personally. It'll evolve over time inside of a brand and develop. But that foundational work to start, words, emotions, labels, attributes, very, very almost psychology 101 from a human perspective, you would do at the brand.
And does the brand have to line up with the industry? For instance, what I mean by that is, let's take a fun, a humorous brand. I think Absurd and Weird, Old Spice. A lawyer isn't going to be able to take on. Maybe they shouldn't. I don't know, or should. I don't really know. But in your estimation, the brands you work with, is there a certain box that brand should operate in according to their industry and the expectations, or should they just break the box?
Boy, that's so situational.
Okay.
There are times when a brand should break the box. They want to be a disruptive brand and come out with a very unique story, almost as a differentiator in their business plan.
Yeah.
But let's stay inside the box for a second.
Sure. Okay.
Because right, if you're going to have, you need courage to step outside the box, and you better be right. So let's say there's a little bit of risk and step outside.
There's a lot riding on it.
So let's just say, to begin with, you're going to take the safer approach to stay inside the box. So I don't know if I would limit it as much by industry.
Okay.
Instead, I would, and this is true of every time I get asked this question, I always go to, okay, I don't know if I care what business you are. I don't know if I care what industry you're in. I care about your audience.
Okay.
Who are you trying to reach? So, for example, if I was in the legal industry, and let's say I was a copyright lawyer.
Yeah.
Well, we know the audience is going to be very serious and very, interested in protecting intellectual property. Now, let's go a different route and say that you're a
very interesting
not injury lawyer, but let's say for some reason you've entered, you as a lawyer, you've entered into a very
let's say divorce law.
A divorce law. Okay. So where maybe in that situation, maybe to get outside the box, divorce is a very serious matter. Firsthand, I can speak to that. But maybe in this case, to stand out in the crowd, you do need to break the box a little bit and maybe even introduce a little humor. I don't know. There would be a way to do it based on, but what you have to do is just say, okay, if there is a couple out there who is going through divorce, is humor appropriate? Is this type of storytelling appropriate? Are they going to connect with your brand when you give them this message? That's what you kind of have to think about. Will this type of messaging really work? Now, if you are just going to be a quirky, funny, humorous brand, and you say, that's how I'm going to do it, but I'm a divorce attorney and this is what I'm going to do, then we're going to come up with a very specific marketing strategy, and you can be successful, but we got to be very clear about who your audience is, because there's only a certain audience that's going to respond to that in that certain situation. So in what you got there is that there's really not let's say it's 20% industry based, and it could be 80% audience based.
Okay.
And that's why some brands, when they build their ideal customer and they start segmenting their audience, you do get this nice alignment of a quirky, funny, humorous brand that breaks the box. It resonated with the audience they're trying to market to.
Yeah.
That's what you really got to think about here. So don't do it for the sake of doing it.
This is very interesting.
Right? Work backwards from who's my audience, what's the message? Oh, no, yeah, what's my brand? And can I figure out how to do this? Because if someone challenged me with, I'm a divorce attorney, but I'm quirky and funny, and I make my clients laugh, and by the time we're done with the 6 months, they're my best friend, great, we can work with that. And I can help you develop a voice that attracts people who don't take this so serious. Maybe they're just looking for a mediator, maybe, whatever, right? Like we can develop a marketing strategy and a tone and voice around that because you're committed to it. You have the courage to do it. And because it lines up with what you're trying to do, but that's going to drive all the marketing. It could drive brand guidelines. It could change the way you write on your website, the blog posts you put out. It could change your radio ads. It could change everything about your business if that's the brand voice you're going to have. But I've got to know how it's going to resonate with the audience and work backwards.
So what I'm hearing you say is very interesting. And I'm not even sure, I've done so many of these interviews, I've had somebody else say this before, is your brand voice is also dictated by your target audience.
Yes, but
and what they want to hear.
Right. Just like you're going to get in trouble if you change your personality because of the partner you're trying to attract. Right. You got to be you.
Yeah.
But to get through all the noise and find your audience, the messaging while representing you needs to account for who it is you're trying to attract.
Yeah. Or perhaps if you've been in business for a little while now, who you're already attracting and making sure you're not pissing them off with a message that doesn't resonate with.
Yes. Or
causing them to go, what the hell are you talking about now?
Yeah. Or on the flip side, often by looking at the current customers that a brand has, they're true fans. The people that I say, hey, if I could interview 5 of your clients, who would they be? When I talk to them, I can work backwards to the brand voice that is true and authentic, often faster than I can from the founder.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's a very common tactic to interview 5 clients. We often transcribe it and then we word map that to create the brand voice.
Yeah.
And then the creator, the entrepreneur, the founder goes, they're right. That is what I've been trying to say.
Wow. So it's better to start with interview.
It can be
established brand.
Right. For an established brand. Yeah. Because if you're giving me your best clients and I ask them open-ended questions and talk with them without any direction from the brand's leadership or management, the truths that you will find they're invaluable. Yeah. And I've seen interviews completely alter and set a brand voice in a new direction. And it's much easier for a brand to step inside of than it's just easier. Sometimes it is easier to go that path. It's an advanced strategy. You could start there and try to work backwards, but in a lot of situations, it's an incredibly powerful technique.
Yeah. Chuck, I tried to do this at the dealership that I worked at off camera, and I speak about it on camera quite a bit. I worked at a car dealership as a marketing director, and I sent out a survey asking them questions. But it's funny, the business owner didn't like the answers to the questions that I got the answers to, and yet he would be selling so many more cars if he had listened to me. It's absolutely mind-boggling. And this is what I'm saying. One of the questions was that it had to do, I can't remember the question, but people wanted to be able to return the car after 7 days if it wasn't to their liking. So a return policy, 7-day no risk guarantee. If you don't like the car, we'll give you 7 days to try out the car. And there was other things that I can't remember what they all were, and he wouldn't implement it. But the customers through a survey told us what they were looking for, and they also told us some of the reasons why they bought from that particular dealership. And lo and behold, another company came along and implemented a message that was 30 days. If 30 days to return the car. If after 30 days you like the vehicle, we'll buy it back from you.
Well, CarMax is popping into my head as the brand that did that.
Yeah. Yeah, they did that. Yeah. But he wouldn't do it. He wanted to be just another cardealer.com. Mm-hmm. And it was unfortunate. So I'm glad that you're sharing some of these things that the customers will tell you what the brand voice is. Mm-hmm. Speaking of
the one thing I would say,
go ahead.
Yeah. One thing I would say there, just is, if, for those that are listening and maybe saying, hey, I want to do this. Yes, you can surveying and getting response via copy, particularly if you can do it in mass, very, very powerful. Mm-hmm. And that will yield a certain result, specifically statistically, if you're trying to figure out something like return policy. Just know that particular process does one thing. This concept of spending an hour to 2 hours with one specific person and having a conversation, much like we're having right now, worth the investment as well. And every word, every question, every answer is just as valuable as we'll collect in a digital survey. So there's two different ways to do this, both of which can give you some valuable nuggets.
And probably bringing them all together, like, for instance, talking to the business owners and the C-level executives and the founders and this, that, and the other thing. And then talking to the customers and then doing this survey. They probably work in conjunction with each other to bring that together.
Absolutely. In one other spot, since I do know you shared with me, Matt, your story about the dealership. One other spot, if you're looking for the truth, one other technique that is used frequently, and I've seen it to be effective, is and this is very, very specific, interview the sales guy.
Yeah.
The salesperson who talks to the clients, particularly the prospects, because that's not just the clients that love you, but the salesperson, particularly an experienced one, also knows the 10 reasons why he didn't make the sale. If as a marketer and a seeker of truth, got to be both there.
Yeah.
Interviewing a person on the sales team can be just as valuable if you know what you're looking for, because they will tell you what they've heard clients say. So if you were to pair a survey with the word map, with interviews, with a feedback loop from the sales team, you're getting pretty damn close to the inputs you need to build a brand voice guideline.
Yeah. What about the customer service people?
Excuse me?
Customer support. Customer service.
Customer support. Yep. Anyone who's actively working. So, sales, prospecting, and then customer support. As well. So anyone that if you did extend that in certain industries, let's say particularly in customer support, not only be important in consumer products, but anyone that's manning the support desk for particularly chat desk for a B2B company, or a B2B software company, they're gonna know, they're gonna have a heartbeat of what the clients are looking for, with what resonates with them and doesn't resonate with them.
Yeah.
You just got to do it in a way, because you always have the company line. And that's important. You got to have SOPs. You got to have standard answers. You've got to train people to be, regimented in how they service clients.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about the off the record conversations. Now, out of the two, I would typically go to a sales guy first, because they're usually used to going a little more rogue faster. But customer service people, absolutely. Once you create a safe environment for them, that they know that, hey, we're really trying to do right by the customer here. They probably have even more data points than a salesperson would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they say in the car industry, the sales team sells the first car and the service sells every car after that.
There you go.
So they're able to tell you why they'll sell the second car and the third car, and if the service department does a crappy job, the prospect will go to a same brand but different dealership because they've had a crappy experience.
There you go.
But they can tell you the reasons why they bought the car and this, that, and the other thing, and why they like it, because they're not being sold. You know what I mean? They're more vulnerable because they've already bought, and they'll tell the service person why they love their car so much in that context. So I was just wondering for validity, for confirmation for that.
Oh, absolutely.
That idea. Yeah, and I heard that one lady, she went and listened in the Bose customer support call center and listened to all the things customers are saying to find out that information. Mm-hmm. But do you think that this is the foundation for developing you mentioned content, but also for developing, for instance, the elevator speech, if you will, or the unique selling proposition for instance, Geico Insurance, 15 minutes will save you up to 15% in car insurance. You know, or I mean, Nike says just do it. I don't even know if they're using that anymore. But the point of the matter of developing that messaging is that key, and is developing the brand voice the foundation to developing the further aspects of the marketing messaging, such as a USP and a elevator pitch, if you will.
Oh, absolutely. So when you think about your brand and voice and the guidelines and the messaging that you craft, it is foundational, just like font, logo, and different design elements that you might have. The brand voice can be applied and applicable to so many different aspects, including the USP, like you asked about. Now, I can tell you, as an agency, we practice what we preach. After one set of client interviews, at some point in our history, I'm going to say it was about 5 years ago, we heard repeatedly that what our clients loved about our agency work is that was our interaction with the team, that we were a part of the team. We weren't separate from the team. It was, we were an extension of them.
Yeah.
So just like, and again, anyone out there, when you work with an agency, you have an employee and then you have an agency, or you have a consultant. And I can get into agency consultants, and it's a topic I'm not passionate about necessarily, but I'm really digging into. But let's just say you have people that work for the company and people that are hired by the company. Yeah. And just like I do when you were at the dealership, or when like I can go to someone in the company and I know I'm going to get a certain response from them. Yeah. Right. Like they're going to stay late. They're going to get the job done. Yeah. Right? When we heard clients say it's like they're part of the team, that's what they meant. Yeah. When they have a board presentation, when they have a report to get done, when they have a big campaign that's launching, we act just like we're an employee. There's no difference. We're an extension of the team. And we heard that come back in the interviews. That's what they appreciated the most. So what do? We spun that into unique selling proposition all the way back, to when we were doing pitches. We are an extension of your team. That's what makes us different as an agency. And sure, everybody says that. Let me give you real examples in our procedures and how we work. We're available via Slack, like an employee is. We will go in and help you present that report to your higher ups, or we'll make you look like a rock star, just like you would ask someone underneath you do. Whatever it is, we always were acting like an extension of your team. So it not only became part of the unique selling proposition, we started to change the company to make sure that people understood, how would an agency or a contractor act versus how would a team member act? And we tried to say, let's act more like a team member and less like an agency, because that was important to our brand. It was a pillar, if you will. And we not only said it was part of our voice to be part of your team, but we're going to act this way. We're going to talk this way. We're going to be this way. So to your point, it can extend into so many different ways once you decide what your brand stands for and how you're going to communicate.
Oh, I lost. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's unique. For sure. No, sorry. I got a little internet is acting up here. So,
I would expect nothing less.
Yes. So in regards to the brand voice, I'm just trying to.
Well, one of the things, Max, I know you're working on technology. I think one thing that is important in all of that, because having it change your operations, communicating to the team takes years and years. One of the quickest applications for your brand voice, and you mentioned it earlier, is the content you produce. Okay. So in digital marketing, there's 3 forms of content that often get affected by a change in brand voice or development of brand voice the most. Yeah. First is the website. Just in general, and that is inclusive of your, what I would call your evergreen content, but more importantly, your blog, our thought leadership that you put out in in articles and, different pieces. So that's one. The second thing that it really should affect tomorrow is your social media, because that's where authenticity and voice show up more than anywhere in personality. Yeah. And then third is in your email. whether it's your transactional emails or your regular communication you do. I don't want to call it a newsletter. It's only appropriate in certain industries. But those are the three aspects where if I were going to say, all right, I have some loose brand voice architecture in place, really loose, right? And I know aspirational versus where you are, great. I'm then going to look at your website, including blog and articles, your social media. I should do that in different order. Social media first, then followed by web, then followed by email, to try to figure out, one, how well are you doing? Just an assessment, no judgment again, so that we can start to introduce some of the brand voice and become more authentic. Because when someone says to me, I'm not getting any engagement on social media, now this is outside of boosting before the paywalls went up. Sure. The number one issue was I would go look at their social media.
It's boring.
When it was boring, but there was no authenticity. There was no brand voice. There was no personality. It's full of stock photography. It's full of what everybody else does. Yeah. And I would say, inside of your voice or outside of your voice, what is it that you are uniquely qualified to talk about? What is it that you want to say? Who are you? If I can't see that in your social media, why do it? Yeah. But what someone would self-diagnose is they're not getting the engagement. They need more followers. No, you don't need more followers. You need to figure out your brand voice and how to communicate and start saying something that is worthy of engagement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Mm-hmm. If you have something worthy to say that is authentic based on,
Right. And people always want to go viral, right? They want to be the Oreo cookie that lights went off at the Super Bowl. But often the hard work is consistent, authentic content that does try to engage with the audience. And then when they do engage, you stay inside of your voice and you keep doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Followers will come. Yeah. If you get that. So social media is usually the place I can see it first. Yeah. Because it's so visible. Website, so usually in a blog or in their articles, I can start to get a sense of if they're on brand voice. And then emails are a little harder. They're usually hidden in the organization a little bit more. The last thing you can work on. But so powerful when that one-to-one, even though it's a group email often, when that one-to-one communication in the email box starts to show your personality, now you're really seeing, you're really going to reap the rewards of the hard work that you put in 3 months, 6 months, a year to get there.
Is there a story you can share of a case study or something, an example of how you implemented this and the impact that it made? Maybe in general terms, you don't have to reveal the name of the brand, but the industry perhaps, or if you're able. I mean, I'm just trying to trigger your memory because it'd be very
I'm thinking through interesting. I'm thinking through a couple examples. I don't know if I would do a specific brand. I will give everybody and again, this, I know I'm speaking to an advanced audience. I'm going to say something rather simple. But in social media specifically, when you're trying to get this voice out, the place to put it is at the top of the funnel.
Okay.
Right. And when I say top of the funnel, I mean the first introduction to your brand. Yeah. And when I say that, and I think about the different brands we've worked with, and I'll use the business side of Land's End, and we have a case study, volume 9. I like to say we still, even though the agency is sold, we had a case study that talked about this. But in that brand awareness space, the first time that someone interacts with the brand is your chance to take that voice and get engagement. So are you inspirational? Are you, that would be, are you funny telling jokes? I mean, this is where your personality can really come out, because your only goal, top of funnel social media, is just to say, hey, I'm Chuck. Hey, I'm plumber. I'm real estate agent. I'm B2B company. I'm just here. I'm not interrupting your day. I'm just sharing something inspirational, a quote, a funny story, a video. I'm just sharing something with you. That's a chance for your personality to really shine. Now, what's great about Facebook and Instagram, and this was a lot easier in the old days, but you can still do it, is that once you do that top of funnel introduction and you have an introduction to brand, you get a little bit of engagement through something that's funny, inspirational, quirky, unique, whatever it might be, you can retarget down the funnel. Educate them on product features, and then finally put an offer in front of them. And again, I'm not a funnel click guy. I'm not a ClickFunnels guy. I'm just using a buyer's journey of getting introduced to a brand, getting to know somebody, and then getting into the meat. And we have case studies where we've done that with brands. So an inspirational quote or a short video clip, or maybe it's a brand that, I can talk about holidays or barbecuing in the backyard or something that is just fun and light. Those brands that understand how to have the first conversation be about a personality, be about something that engages the user, or the audience before they move into marketing and sales. That's that's now execution of the brand voice, right? And I've made it a couple times. I make analogies to real life, right? Like,
no, that's okay.
You don't start with your occupation or your interest in railroad, trains. The first thing out of your mouth, right? Right. You get to know somebody a little bit. Who are you? You have a lighthearted joke. You share a story, right? You have a tea or a beer, whatever it is. You have coffee or beer. Like, you kind of wade into it. The case studies we show with brand is be light in that first engagement, and then over time get a little more serious into the conversation. And things like blog post and top of funnel social media allows that to happen. So does there's different things that do it, and then you can you get a little more serious, and you bring up different brand attributes later in the conversation. So that it's not necessarily, but there's a case study behind it, because we showed how what we did in the case studies is that we built an audience and we marketed to them cold with brand voice. And then we also warmed them up with engaging content before. And we showed that your return on ad spend, once you got down to actually running ads, was a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 multiple to a warm audience that had been exposed to your brand through engaging content that was more on your top of funnel brand voice before putting an offer in front of them. Like, we were able to show across multiple scenarios that, the funnel isn't a sales trick to get someone to buy from you, right? You don't put someone in a funnel to force them. Email 5 times to get them to buy. No. Think about this differently. Start the journey with, who am I as a brand? And I hope that resonates with you. And then if it does, let me tell you a little bit more about what I'm doing. And then if you like that, let me give you an offer. That's a abstract conceptual funnel. It doesn't actually play out in a quick funnel, but the case studies that we've built, and when we've talked, been at trade shows and done webinars, that's the case study that we talk about, how to take your brand voice and communicate in the beginning of the journey, at the top of the funnel, how you communicate when someone's in the decision-making, not even in the decision-making mode, in the awareness and problem-solving mode, and decision mode. How does your brand voice translate to your messaging in those different phases? And that can be done more, it's easier to do in social media and then email. It's a little harder on your website, but still possible depending on where they are on the website. Are they at the homepage or the contact page? Are they in a service page? Are they on a blog post? Depending on where they are, you might think about the kind of things that you're messaging and saying from your brand voice because of where they are in their journey. Yeah.
And making sure those things line up.
Exactly. Yeah. We like to say, right person.
Yeah.
Right message at right time.
Yeah. 3 R's.
That suddenly starts to become your content marketing
message,
strategy.
Market, medium. Dan Kay talks about that in his book, The Ultimate Marketing Plan. Marketing, message, market, and medium. Making sure that all those 3 things are in the right time, right place, right message. Hey, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. I'm sure we could, we've been talking for quite some time now, and I'm sure there's other things we could talk about and keep going. And I would love to have you back on the show if you would come back online or come back again. My apologies. It's been absolutely, I've enjoyed it, and I'm sure our audience is going to enjoy it. How can listeners connect with you online if they want to do so?
Well, up until a couple of weeks ago, they could have went to Volume 9 and found me. What you can do right now is you can go to chuckisacaikens.com. There's the beginning of a website there, but you can reach out via the website. There's a form there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. as well. Even with all the spam that goes on there, I do actively message on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn or the website, and also, I have the beginnings of a new business model that I'm putting together called Taimu. Just a landing page up there, but that'll be something that we'll be working on in the future. So chuckisaacakins.com or LinkedIn. It's a great way to connect, and always happy to talk with folks. If business comes out of it, great. If not, I just appreciate the connection and the relationship, and always looking to help someone out.
Well, fantastic. Again, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.